I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, not at all, ma'am. It's absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely exciting. And as I begin with the talk on human values, I would definitely, like to put on the in the knowledge of the great audience here that it was none other but Professor Ojha, to whom I'm obliged, because she has been a pillar supporting arts and humanities education at IIIT for a holistic development of the personality. And I remember you, ma'am, very much. I've been a sort of a raw kid, and you raised me into a professor here, being a senior most teacher here and the director at the time when I joined the institute. She has been a pillar of support for the education in human values. So I am at all capable of talking on this subject because of IIIT that allowed me to teach this wonderful course to the students here for 11 long years. Right from 2011, I have been in this course teaching actively to the students. So all the information...
May I say something, yes, Mamta? May I say something? Thank you.
Yes,
so when Mamta joined, she was presenting her work for the post of assistant professor here. When she was presenting, she told us that right from the elementary school, she was interested in the works of Radha Krishnanji, yes, and Geeta. So your roots were there. Thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity.
Most welcome, ma'am. This is a very homely atmosphere that you're building up in the talk. And that is how philosophies need to be discussed. This very, very strict academic taste will not, make the people rise in their mind potential. So yeah, that is the reason all the more that I'm excited, because I very humbly got the honor for whatever, humble learning I had. So beginning with my talk, I would like to tell the audience here that my research on human values is dependent on a very good exposure in teaching this Supreme Court mandated subject in IIIT-DM. And as I kept on building up on the foundations of my experimentation on human values, which is a philosophical subject, and many a times you might find the students to be, giving in the beginning sort of very negative impression to you, ma'am, why human values? We are engineers. Why do we need to learn this? And I'm sure many of you might be belonging to the engineering sciences. There could be some people from the arts faculty, as I came to know that the topic of the FDP is NEP 2020, which concentrates heavily on the human and in promoting human values education. And from the time it has been implemented, I have been giving talks very often on the subject. So the point is, the students often and on give you a very negative impression at the beginning, because they think, oh my God, morality, is this a subject to be at all talked and taught? How is it that we are doing it, and what kind of an impact it would have on my personality? They did not seem to be quite agreed to, why they're taking it. But as we proceeded with our syllabus that was made by the senior teachers here, as we kept on going deep into the Rig Vedic, into the Bhagavad Gita, into the world wisdom literature, I could definitely see a sea change in the group. Like I used to teach something like 300 of the first year, and I could very assuredly tell you that at least 60 to 70% of the class had a huge change in the mindset. There was a development of sobriety. There was a love for good manners. Their personality got powerful. So my talk, as it proceeds on, you would see, I read a lot through the sciences to develop my arguments on the philosophical study of the human values. And in this FDP today, that is what I have brought. So I do hope the learned gathering here would be much interested in it. And I would place my talk something like 1 hour 15 minutes or 1 hour 30 minutes. The rest of the 30 minutes, we would only have the discussion, but from time to time, I would definitely love to stop and attend to the questions as they come here, because my experience is that this is a very, very interactive topic to be dealing with, because morality or ethics, somewhere or the other, has been the dearest topic to the human soul since the times immemorial. So I start with my presentation slides here, and I want it to be colorful with it because we are talking about philosophy. Sometimes many people find themselves to be slightly taken into a very deep, deep world, and therefore is slightly exhausting. But I have often and found that keeping them to be centered on colorful slides is always a gain. So that is how I brought these colorful slides. I will now start with my work here. So Madam has already introduced me to the group, and this is the topic for our discussion today. So beginning with it, the title of the topic of discussion today is Human Values for Brain and Mind Development. Now, there you have brain and mind development, and to share with you my experience on this. When we were making the course on human values, and I prepared the draft as was asked by the director to do, and we had numerous wonderful faculty of the IITs in a committee. And when I circulated this draft over the email, I came to know about the corrections when they were sent back as a feedback. And you won't believe this. Many a times, in fact, most of us, even today, assume brain and the mind to be the same. This is how it was a decade before. Brain and mind were considered to be synonymous. And in the feedback that I received from the IIT professors also, I was slightly amazed to see that, yes, probably that knowledge had not even percolated to the IITs then. And many of the professors converted my word mind into brain because they thought these are synonyms and I'm interchangeably using it. They're not two different things. No, that's not the reality. And now that we have wonderful researches in the science being carried out by the neuroscientists, as we live in a very wonderful, important century, this is called the golden period for the brain sciences, 21st century. Our fMRIs, MRIs, CAT scans, and all of these things have trained the doctors, neuroscientists to believe in what our rishis in the Upanishads had written. And they, at that time, some 2,500 years ago, the rishis of India knew mind, or put in Sanskrit, manaha. Manaha is a kosh that is beyond the body. So my dear, all the learned people present here, as we begin with it, these are the two things we need to be absolutely clear with. Brain is something inside the skull, whereas mind is an energy capsule. That is a zone for the vibrations of thoughts and feelings. In fact, if we go by the Upanishadic understanding, which the science is increasingly ratifying, we are not just composed of this length, breadth, and height that we see. We are even beyond that. In our abstract selves that we call it as personality, we do exist in a thought and feeling zone, which had this FDP be conducted inside a classroom or a hall, we would have experienced this abstract personality all the more. So it is this mind energy that encapsulates this body. And as per the proportion of the scientists, they say this body is hardly 0.1% of our reality. 0.1% of our reality. And I'm talking not about the philosophies, please, here. I'm talking about the neuroscientists. Name them, it is Dr. Jeffrey, who wrote a wonderful book, The Brain and the Mind. It is Dr. Sejal, who wrote a wonderful book, Aware. It is our own Deepak Chopra, who has written a lot about it. So 99.9% of our reality is our energy system, energy koshas. I'm not going into the details there. So what have the human values got to do with the brain and the mind? Number one thing, what we call as brain is nothing but the part of the body inside the skull. But that comes only as the third brain in the body. The first brain is our intestines, because this Manaha Kosh surrounds the entire body. And before our brain can even click on an information, Manaha Kosh already transmits, that is the mind energy transmits its information to the cells. And the very first cells of the body that are capable of sending the information to the brain are our intestines. We are connected to the insula here, and brain receives the information from the intestine. And that is the reason why there is a phrase, you're having goosebumps. When we are fearful, we feel some kind of a turbulation in the intestines, because the intestines are a lot more intuitive to what is happening around. That is the first brain of the human being. The second brain of the human being is the heart. And of course, the poets, the novelists, the writers, even the greatest of the scientists have known their field by the heart. It is the heart that knows first. And how did the doctors discover it? In the ICU, where the patients were lying in coma, it is a practice among the brain scientists that to waken up the person from a coma, they've often experimented by bringing in the firstborn child of that person, or some very sweet tune to which the person was very much accustomed to. And they saw that before the EEG that measures the brain activity flutters, it is the heart that picks up the signals. And the moment the heart picks up the signals, it makes the brain awaken. So many times, by seeing their firstborn child, many of the parents from the coma state have been brought out.
Mantaji, you are sorry, you are accidentally muted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So the scientists have been able to bring out coma patients by showing them the firstborn child, because that's a very different bond. It's the first time that the parents become mom and dad. So it's a very precious memory with the first child attached. The second is the tunes. So this much for the brains. A heart is the second brain, and this comes only as the third, the center that processes the information. We'll come more to it. Now, talking about the human values, morality, ethics, talks about character. Today I was teaching to one of my philosophy groups, Autobiography of Gandhi. And we had a detailed discussion on ahimsa. Now, ahimsa is a human value with which the entire Indian philosophy is laden with. We have numerous experiments by the philosophers and the greatest leaders of India on ahimsa. And I engaged my students on, why is this value important? Why it was a political philosophy of Gandhi? How Gandhi was a flower of the Indian philosophy. We're not going into the Indian philosophy, but yes, to give you an example of what human value is, non-violence is a human value. Honesty is the best policy, is a human value. Being kind and considerate to others is a human value. Now, as we explore this topic, we will be trying to understand how human values have an impact on the brain and the mind. And it is from human values that we must proceed on with the education. right? So we'll be dealing more with this. Now I proceed further. Anything, if anybody would like to ask on this much of talk of mine, you can ask now as we move on to the abstract. Any questions there?
We can ask them to write on the chat box as we have muted them just for the
Yes.
Sake of, otherwise what happens that accidentally some people keep their mics on.
Yes, ma'am.
So anyone who would like to ask or say something is please feel free in either raising your hand or
writing anything on the chat
writing
box.
on the chat box, yes.
Because this could be a topic over which many people have not specialized, might be belonging to the science stream, but I've based my talk on science researchers, so it should make you feel very homely.
So the audience is very much like heterogeneous. There are science people, there are commerce people, there are arts people, humanities, social science people. So it's a perfect heterogeneous group.
Yes, that's wonderful, wonderful. So in case if people don't have any questions, let's move to the abstract. So here we come to the abstract. These are the 6 points over which we are going to discuss the role of human values in the development of the brain and the mind. Now, starting with the very first statement here, it has been observed by the neuroscientists that something that leaves you inspired, which is an experience of all of us. Many times, many of us read some scriptures. Say, for example, Asto Ma Sadgamaya. It's a very popular shlok in Sanskrit, sung and read in the entire India. We are all accustomed and very much familiar with it. Asto Ma Sadgamaya. May I move on to the good path, right? The prayer is of the Rigvedic rishis. Now, when this inspires us, what we're going to actually find out here is that what is the role of human values in inspiring? Now, what is this moment of getting inspired? Doctors could see in their scans that the moment we are inspired by a great thought, the moment we are inspired by a great personality, the moment we are inspired by a great ideal in one of our scriptures, what happens is that there is a settlement of chaos in the mind energy. Mind energy, if not cultivated, if kept in a very raw state, remains chaotic because of too many conflicting thoughts and feelings. Say, for example, if you're not very cultivated enough, we feel jealous, we feel fear, we feel hatred, we feel so many negative emotions. And then this thought and this mind zone becomes clogged with these negative energies. And we are not open to realize many things. But suddenly, when we see a deep thought occurring in front of us, a great personality uttering something very beautiful, a great poem, suddenly our entire mind energy with this beautiful positive thought settles down. The chaos is removed. And once the chaos is removed, what have the scientists seen is that this energy system settles down and there is a great amount of activity in the brain. Suddenly, there is a very good clarity in the thoughts achieved, and it is then the brain sparks and many important circuits in the brain get formed. So the scientists discovered that human values have the role of settling your mind energy, and thereby they rewire the brain, and that is how we are able to use more of our brain. A greater part of the brain activity is harnessed because of the settled mind energy. We move on to the next one on what do the human values do to the intention. Intention is attention. Now, again, we'll proceed through the example. Like, for example, human value of India was ahimsa. Now, there is a shlok in Mahabharata uttered by Bhishma Pitamaha, ahimsa parmo dharmaha, ahimsa parmam tapaha, ahimsa paramam jnanam, ahimsa kim na sadhyate. I translate it into English. Ahimsa parmo dharmaha. It is ahimsa is the greatest of religion. Ahimsa paramam tapaha. It is the greatest of tap, meditation. Ahimsa paramam jnanam. It is the highest knowledge. Ahimsa kim na sadhyate. क्यों नहीं हम अहिंसा को फॉलो करते? Why don't we follow ahimsa? That is a great shloka in Mahabharata that caught the breath of the Indians. Because our philosophers taught us, when we don't even think anything negative about the person who has done wrong to us, when we have that great control over this mind energy, that somebody has damaged us and we are able to control our mind from negativity, what would happen is that the mind energy expands. It is not clogged by the negativity. And when there is a beautiful human value like ahimsa implanted in the mind energy, we start believing in it because we have seen it to be true. We do not merely assume, we can clearly guess how this is very true. That becomes a funnel. It acts as a funnel in the mind energy called intention. What are intentions? Intentions are funnel where the entire mind energy gets concentrated. There is a wrongdoer, imagine, who has done something wrong to us. A very normal, natural reaction to it is we might talk negative about that person, we might hate that person, we might fear that person. But if we are a believer in the non-violence, we know even this mind energy has to be saved from negativity. So what happens is that there is a big transformation set in. The person who is a victim, who has suffered, stops thinking negative about that person. There is a funnel of ahimsa implanted. The entire mind energy gets focused. And that is how a brilliant amount of attention is built up. So intention is attention means what? Intention is a funnel that collects our huge mind potential and then makes it flow as a great attention on the wrongdoer, where these people who are very aware, consciousness is awareness, settled mind energy is a very conscious energy. And when we are cultivated by the human values, this settled mind energy is very perceptive. The person, like a cat scan, is able to read in and out. That person has a terrific insight into the wrongdoer. Where is this person going wrong? They're able to read. And in this great understanding, they're able to easily forget and forgive the wrongdoer. In fact, with that higher state of awareness, they set in the procedure for transformation to happen. Right? So that is about intention as an attention. And I try to explain to you through example. We will go into the scientific details as we move on. I see one hand is raised. Please, if you would like to say something or write something on the chat box for us.
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am. This is Bharati.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, actually, you are telling about we have to have a control over whatever negativity that has been done to us, so that our mind energy gets concentrated, so our attention gets improved. But the human nature is that normally, even if a small negative thing happens, we prolong that is thinking the same. So how to have the control over that?
Yes, this is where, this talk is going to mean a lot, because sciences are increasingly discovering that it is very, very important that education was concentrating or cultivating the mind. Mind is like a fertile ground. If we plant very good seeds in it, we'll have a robust growth of trees, and then we are not going to be easily carried away by the storms. All our soil is not going to get drained. When we are a very cultivated people, like there are numerous people on earth, and in the history we have seen, who have been wretchedly offended by numerous people. Say, for example, I do not know how many of us appreciate Mahatma Gandhi. I'm just taking him as an example. Or about Gautam Buddha. There were so many people who tortured them, offended them, laughed at them, provoked them to come out in anger. But these people were steady figures having a terrific control over the mind. And as far as Mahatma Gandhi is concerned, because he's a more recent one, so I can take him as an example conveniently. He used to take Bhagavad Gita as his mother. He told the entire world, Bhagavad Gita is my mother. And Ramayana was his favorite book. So, and then he used to have his Prarthana Sabha every evening. In fact, the rishis of India used to say that we must contribute 2 minutes every hour to meditation, where we must keep on repeating some interesting shloka in the mind. It has the impact of sweeping away the negativity. So these people, as it has come out, I cannot say everybody who reads the scriptures is a great person. We read a lot about it in the newspapers. No, it is not like that, because a blind person cannot be taught anything by the scriptures. Indeed, a good cultural grooming. Mahatma Gandhi was inspired to read Bhagavad Gita from his school, not from his family background, where the teachers told him that you need to be proud of your own country. And why don't you come to Sanskrit literature? Why don't you read Gita? So that is how his mind has started getting cultivated. And more the cultivated the mind, people already have these, numerous good intentions planted in them. We can't switch them off at all. No matter whatever tragedy happens with them, they are capable of coming back. They are very strong minds, people who are very strong minds. They're not so easily driven or, smitten or devoured by tragedies as much as an ordinary person who has not been raised well. Right. So that is what we read in the history, and that is what even today we see more of the seasoned souls. And in fact, Dr. Bharti, in fact, I should also tell you about a scientific research made on this. Dr. Anna Weiss is a neuroscientist who has done research on brain waves in the entire world. And she found out that the brain waves of topmost CEOs, top political leaders, top spiritual leaders, top bureaucrats, top businessmen, the pattern of the brain waves of all of these people are similar. They are indeed great. They live with an expanded mind energy, and they already know, they live in a very much aware state. So anybody irritating them is not very easily, possible for them to lose their mind, right? They're very much aware people, and they know how to develop and transform people around them. So I hope in some ways I have, with the scientific proof, given an answer to your question. I hope you're convinced. Shall we proceed then?
Professor, maybe the forgiveness is another thing which can be brought up in every mind to forgive the people who have been giving this.
Yes,
all this.
Indeed, as I said in the beginning, these people live with a heightened sense of awareness. Awareness is that you know why that person is doing this. What is the weakness in the character of that person? Forgiveness is not possible with the people who can't understand. But when you live with that kind of an awareness, you're able to see, "Arey, isko to ye malum nahi hai." That is the reason why this person behaves in such a miscalculated way. Unfortunate. I pity that person. Many a times these great people use this word. They pity others instead of like us getting irritated. So forgiveness happens as much as the understanding gets improved, right? So it was an interesting, conversation that happened in between, but I must proceed on with the abstract. Carrying on further. Now, next is human values. How do they make us more energetic? Yes, indeed. When we live with the inspired thoughts, all of us must have, felt this. When we are in a positive mood, we feel so light, we feel so jolly, we feel so jovial. And come what may, we are capable of giving our best to the things. It's because we live with more of energy. So today the scientists are saying that actually energy, that is the Manha Kosh, is a center for information. Now, this is not actually the same as information broadcasting. Now, even the physicists are saying that human values have an impact on this human energy, giving it a pattern. The energy gets settled in a pattern. Now, we are saying that mind has to be saved from the chaotic state. How to be saved from chaotic state? There is some useful patterning of the energy that comes in with the information and the human value. What is that information? I have separated in from that with a hyphen. Information. That means a mind energy is in the formation state. The more we are exposed to the human values, the more we realize how true it is to be ahinsavadi, that you live as a brave person, you live as a courageous person, you live as an evolved person who has the power to change the offender, to change himself for a more creative purpose to be attained. This is the energy patternizing. So moving on to the next one, which is very, very strange. There are two opposite words coming up with a verb there. Slow is fast. Very difficult statement to believe in. How is it slow to be the fast? But that is miraculous finding by Dr. Daniel Siegel, a neuroscientist. I read in his book in 2018. That's a recent publication of 2018, book Aware. It's a terrific book. I asked all of the people whom I've interacted with to have a personal copy of this book with them. It's all about brain science and the state of awareness, where he found out in his laboratory that the more settled you are there in the mind energy, it is very, very important. Now, I would request everybody to pay attention to what I'm saying now. The more slow we are in the mind energy, the faster is the operation of the brain. I'm talking science here. Human values, when they have the energy in them to work as an anchor for our mind energy, they work as anchors. Those great thoughts make us settled. They are capable of holding the mind energy to themselves. The truth in them is able to hold us. It is then the mind grows very slow. And the slower it is, now I think all of us can perceptibly very well imagine what is this state like. When are we very quick and very fast with the mind energy? When we are disturbed. When we are disturbed, one negativity from one side, another negativity from another side, and then the mood gets spoiled. Our mind is too fast calculating. The people are playing politics against me. How do I need to achieve a success here? I am getting defeated. I have failed because of them. Mind is terribly disturbed. The brain is very dumbed at that time. When we are mentally disturbed, the brain is dumbed. It does not know which thought to catch up. But when the mind is a settled energy, brain is very quick. I will tell you later on when we come to those slides. In fact, they have measured it in the laboratory. When the mind is settled down of the meditators, on myelin, that is the covering on the cell that insulates the cell, deposition of myelin is 3,000 times greater than the normal disturbed person. Because brain functions very fast, there is a lot of good flow of the blood happening, and the myelin deposition on any damaged part of the body heals faster. So that is how meditation is a practice for the people who have suffered fractures. Now we move on to the next one. First versus foremost. Everybody wants to be first today. We only believe in being first. Now, we talk to the youngsters today. Everybody wants to be first. They want to be the first to attain 40 lakhs package, want to be at the topmost level of their empires. They want to be the first all the time. But in fact, if we are belonging to the level of a cultivated brain, cultivated mind, instead of being the first one, human values train us. When we live with a settled mind energy, we get trained to understand the importance of other people in our life. And then when we learn to place the interest of the other people first, which we think only the saints do, but the reality is that the more cultivated a mind we are, the more we are capable of serving the interest of other people and achieve happiness in doing that. We know the pain of other people. Mind energy is settled, it is more aware. So you're obviously able to read the pain of another person. When you're able to read the pain of another person, you'll do something to solve it. So others become important in your life. And slowly and gradually, as others become important in our life, we obviously become the more important person in the society. That is a way to be the first in the society. We don't need to be first in the society through cruel competition. In fact, the people who are capable of bringing the society together are the ones who become the foremost. And they become very important people because they take in a more of responsibility. And there we move on to the last, survival of the fittest. What a statement made by Charles Darwin. And there are many people who have arisen in a disagreement with it. Here we are not disagreeing with him as much, but indeed, we are going to probably understand it in a different manner. Survival of fittest. In fact, the brain researchers today tell us the more we live in diversity, the more we live in a unity, the more there is a togetherness in your life, the more are we in relationships, the greater is the potential of your mind and brain. The greater is the functioning of the brain. I'm not saying that loners are at a disadvantage, because rishis were loners, but in fact, they were tuned in their mind energy with the ultimate spirit. If the people believe in God, you can call it as God, but they were tuned to the ultimate spirit. So in fact, they were in the greatest of the company. But even the ordinary souls, when we stay in a unison of the mind energy, there is a greater potential of the brain we harness. And that is how, when the brain is working to an utmost, it takes care of the body activity. And that is how we become the fittest to survive. So there we end with the abstract. I would be open to the questions. If at all anybody has any question to be asked here. It seems all good. So
participants, if you have any question, please raise your hand, please. If you have any questions, if you want to participate in any discussion, please raise your hands.
Questions could be on the chat box.
Maybe you can go ahead because it
I'll
seems
go
there are no questions here. Thank you.
Yes. Thankfully, if the people have followed it. Now here comes the most interesting slide in this presentation, teacher's predicament. And I really, feel that this is a personal experience with most of the teachers here who have taken up something like, as challenging as human values to be discussed with youngsters just out of the school, people who have never seen the world, people who are opening their eyes for the first time to the world, people who are not anymore living with the parents, but we are the guardians to them. And that is where most of us, like me, must have experienced that a young person is very freely talking to us. They open up the mind easily and they talk about their innermost fears, innermost beliefs very openly. But it's a protected atmosphere of the educational institution where they learn. So it's good if they share the mind. They shared the mind with me in the Shakespearean lines of Macbeth. That's a famous drama of Shakespeare. I have used the same lines here. There he made, he had a dialogue, fair is foul and foul is fair. And that leashed on a tragedy in the entire drama. Now here, whenever I went to these classes discussing about human values, morality, ethics with the people, they said, Madam, it's not good to be good. Sorry. You want us to believe in character, ma'am? If people believe in character, they will not rise high in life. Character people don't rise high in, ma'am. That is all Ramayana, ma'am. Come on, ma'am. Aap kya sikha rahi hai hame? So they used to say, ma'am, bad is good, ma'am. It is not very, important to be fair to others. It is very important to be ensuring your own interests. And then they also said, ma'am, good is bad. Good people suffer so much at the hands of the society. Nothing good happens with them. See, even the stories tell you this, ma'am. And of course, Bollywood movies are making huge amount of money by floating these kind of stories. And then we see the third kind of people who believe in being the fast and faster and fastest. They want to hurry with everything. Hurry with the equations, hurry with their settlement, hurry with the package. And of course, many of the firms also want everybody to be in a hurry. Fast, faster, fastest. Now, the reality was very early realized by our rishis who said, Manahi Mahantam Dhanam. Mind is the greatest wealth, they said. Preserve your mind. In fact, it is a tragedy that our Bollywood movies are showing the reverse of the reality. The reality we see in our own families. Who survives the entire family? It is a good person. We need good people. I then asked these students, better you tell me this, ma'am, honest hone ka koi matlab nahi hai. There is no use of being honest. It is no use of being good. You're cheated by everyone. I ask those people, you tell me, in your entire household, who is that one person to whom everybody consults? Everybody seeks the counsel of that person. There must be this kind of a person in your family. And then they suddenly recollect, yes, my Dadaji is one, my Chachaji is one, that most of the people have a faith on. I said, okay, see, you're unaware being taken up by the Bollywood movies that the hero being a good person suffers in life. In fact, I told them, even the sciences tell us the good and the virtuous people live the longest and the happiest life, healthiest life. The people who are not capable of believing in the good are the ones who live in a disarray, who have the bad company, and bad company actually shortens the life. It does not elongate the life. These are the researchers of Dr. Emin, another neuroscientist, the most brilliant psychiatrist today in America. He has written in his book, Unleash the Power of Your Brain, where he has found it out in his research that actually the good people survive the most because they are able to preserve this mind energy. This needs the preservation, where the human values do help us. Okay, so there was a question. When I come back to that point, I'll definitely answer to that. Slow is fast through an example. I'll definitely do it. It is very, very obvious an example of meditation. If I might just tell you it in short, meditation slows us down. It slows us down very well. Like meditating on an image of God, meditating on a great thought, and that is how the brain works faster. So we'll come back to it. Thank you for asking that question. Moving on to the next slide. There you see a beautiful flower, lotus. And maybe if anybody would like to answer to this, I have a question for the wonderful audience here. What is the lotus flower associated with in Indian religions, be it Hinduism, be it Buddhism, be it Jainism, be it Sikhism? These religions of the Indian soil employ lotus flower a lot in their art and architecture in the temple, in the images. Anybody has a guess on it? What is lotus flower a connotative of? That is the question I put to the audience there. What is lotus flower connotative of? If anybody has any say on that. Must have seen it often. Most of the Hindus, like we worship goddess Lakshmi, she is shown, she is called Kamlasan. She is shown sitting over the lotus flower. With Ganeshi also we have this lotus flower. Sikhism uses it a lot. So any guess on what lotus flower is connotative of? Okay. Yeah, let me check this answer in the chat box. Okay, yes, Mahalakshmi Sthanam, lotus petals are connected. Yes, place for Lakshmi. Wow, we have good number of replies coming in. Wow, that is a wonderful answer from Dr. Manoj. Purity, symbol of maximum concentration. Okay, I'd like to attempt that. Okay, good. Very nice. There are so many replies now coming in. That makes me, feel really enthusiastic to carry on. So fine. We have a sort of an understanding that lotus in Indian religions is considered to be a very important flower for one reason. In art and architecture of India, when we associate lotus flower with the gods, actually, lotus flower is connotative of the mind energy. Mind energy, the mind zone that we were talking about, lotus flower is connotative of it. And what does it mean? We have seen the nature of lotus flower. It blooms in sunlight and it shuts itself down once the sun has set. Okay, this is the most known interpretation of the lotus flower. It grows in the mud, but it opens up to the sky. Exactly, we are coming to that point. So a lotus flower opens up in the sunlight. What did the rishis say through the lotus flower? Teach the Indian masses through it. That the mind energy is cultivated in the sunlight of wisdom. Sunlight is connotative of the wisdom. In the greatest of the scriptures, in the reality of this life, when we become perceptive of the reality of the life, the high wisdom that we start appreciating, It opens up the mind energy. It makes it absorb more of an information. And it is only then we rise up the muddy waters, as one of you rightly said. Thank you very much. That was the right answer. I got 2 right answers from the audience here. Exciting. Right. We'll come to it, Dr. Manoj. Thank you again for your wonderful replies. So when we open up in the wisdom, it is only that the truth of God. God is connotative as of truth in the Indian religions. Satya Ishwar ek hi hai hamare liye. It is only then that the Kamlasan, goddess Lakshmi, Ganeshi, or any of the gods, they arrive. The truth arrives to this mind that is open and cultivated. So that is one way of organizing the mind energy. I have actually put this on the slide here. Mind energy gets settled when we are open to the wisdom coming through the scriptures. Like Upanishads even speak about literature. Literature is something that has been the vehicle to the world's religions. Each and every religion of the world has used the vehicle of religion to reach to the masses. Be it our Gita, be it our Ramayana, Mahabharata, be it the Quran, be it the Bible, all of these are poems. Be it Dhammapad of Gautam Buddha, be it any religious text in the world, it's all literature. Because Upanishads speak about literature as that great subject, the milk of, it's a cow, they say. It's a sacred cow. Literature is a sacred cow, the milk of which is wisdom. Literature trains us and it feeds us with wisdom. So that is the sunlight. Even Kavi Nirala imagined the importance of literature in the world as a sunlight that opens up your mind to wisdom. Be it through tragedies, be it through poems, be it through comedy, any sort of literature. So that is one way of organizing the mind energy. Another is reflection. Now I'm taking you to the sciences on how to settle down with the mind energy. We just talked about the human values coming down from the scriptures. The other is when we hear to these great truths about life from great souls, we are set onto the pace of reflection. We start reflecting. Like you see on the picture here, there is a lady sitting on the staircase, wandering out of the window, thoughtful. It is when we are thoughtful, when we are sifting the thoughts in the mind, removing the negative, concentrating on the positive, we have a more of a settled mind energy then. Right? So that is one of the ways. I'm just telling you the ways that leaves us settled in the mind energy. The light of human values only trains us in sifting, to throw away, to pluck away the negative thought, That is reflection, which strengthens the mind. Now, there is a beautiful picture. God knows at this elderly age, how many of us keep so innocent that we like to jump like these young kids. But young kids are more blessed than us. Often and on, they feel like jumping, because this is one of the important thing about the relationships. The more we are into healthy relationships, into harmonious relationships, the more there is a mental fusion achieved. Human values also have a great role to play in making masses into community. Like, for example, a greatest of literatures, when it gets accepted by a huge distinct mass, it becomes a community. Like, people believing in the Bible are Christians, people believing in the Quran are the Islamists, people believing in Gita are the Hindus. We become a community. And there is greater human values also bring in a mental fusion between different people. And that makes us all more energetic. Imagine you have your mind energy, and when mind energy of another person through great supply of thoughts and feelings, joins you. All of us feel more energetic when we are having a great party, when we attend a party with our friends, with our relatives. We feel so light, jolly, and lovely because we are full of energy. So that is one test, neuroscientists say, of actually finding out your mind potential. How much do in the relationships you feel is strong? That shows what is the mental capacity you're living with. Because when you feel light, you jump, as you see in the picture here. Another test for mind energy is resilience. There you see the bamboo sticks. The more is the mind energy cultivated, the stronger is the force to resist. As I answered to one of the questions here on how to make your mind strong, it is not something that will get over time. Now the doctors are almost prescribing everybody to do meditation. And everybody has in the current century realized meditation is so important. In fact, I do meditation regularly from 7 to 7:40 in the evening. I'm associated with the Art of Living teachers. And I did realize this. It made me so easily perceptive. I'm not talking fiction. I'm not talking something, that science will not be able to believe in. Today, science is paying attention to all of these things. I became so perceptive that I could know easily the doubt in my students without them asking me. It happens, sometimes to the extent that I can actually make out who could be calling me and the phone starts ringing. Intuitive, because the thought vibration reaches me. Somebody is calling me. So practically I have witnessed this. But how do you actually become resilient through cultivated mind energy is that numerous shocks will definitely happen in life. There would be failures, there will be politics, there will be conspiracy, there will be loss in the family. And if we are able to resiliently take it, it does speak for your great order of mind energy that is cultivated primarily through meditation, through human values. So that is another test. Now, because we are into NEP, I would definitely like to talk about something on how human values can be taught. Now that we have understood what are human values, now that we have understood what is mind and brain, what is now left to us is to understand how they can be taught. Because this entire FDP is on NEP 2020. And as teachers, we want to implement this as a syllabus. Now, here you have a Fulbrighter from India. Way back in 1957, he was awarded a Fulbright. And then after 3 years' time, America invited him to permanently settle in America. Professor Eknath Ishwaran. He's from Kerala. And in the University of California, Berkeley, he introduced human values for the very first time in California. Now, that is something, very strange. We Indian people traditionally are, much motivated to learn human values. But when it comes to experimentation, I must say that Westerners are a lot more open to such experiments in spirituality. So Professor Eknath Ishwaran introduced a course in California on human values. He made a huge compendium for the course, a textbook in which he had his shlokas from Vedas, from Upanishads, from Quran, from Chinese scriptures, from Bible, from the greatest of literatures of the world and the writers. And it became slowly the most popular course to be joining in University of California, Berkeley. And that is an example I would like to, engage all of us in. Wisdom and values in mind Now, what was this procedure? How did he do it? The very first thing he did in the class was meditation on values. There is somebody who has asked me in the chat box a question, ma'am, give us an example on how is a slow fast, right? I gave you a minor example at that time of meditation. Now let's talk about values. Like for example, all of us are associated with this slok and familiar with Astoma Sadgamaya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Right? I'll just take the first line of it. Astoma Sadgamaya. Make me move from falsehood to good path. Sadgamaya. Right? Now, for example, what he used to do in the classes is this. Way back in 1957, the students were asked to meditate on this one particular line for a long time. I experimented it on myself. And today, this is a set procedure in most of the hospitals of the world. Now, as the students meditated it in for a long time and then repeated it, that is the second procedure he adopted in his classes, repetition. And slowly, people could witness that they started settling down. Mind that often and on remains in a chaotic state of fear of competition, of the fear of defeat, of the fear of losing money, of the fear of how to maintain relationships, stress, tension. What are these? These are actually normal chaotic thoughts that keep on happening in the mind energy. And unfortunately, in the latest, time, in the recent times, we have started treating stress and tension normally. There are so many people who keep on talking about it as normal, but take it for granted. That is bound to happen. You can't escape it. No, that's not our natural state. It's an abnormal state. So the students joined his course and realized, oh my God, I am a lot more different than what I assume myself to be. I'm plain, I'm simple, I'm quiet. So this repetition made them grow slow. And a slow mind is like a brilliant crystal. It will show you the reality without any smudge, without any corruption. And that is the reason why these slow minds are very perceptive. You talk to them once, they follow everything. Decisions to be taken, these minds are very easily taking that most tiresome decisions ever made, most crucial decisions ever made. Now, how does that actually happen? They realized once you meditate on the passage, you keep on repeating it, the mind energy settles down, slows down, giving you one pointed attention. Now, I hope all of you remember here, I talked about the intention. One pointed attention. The mind energy gets directed. Oh my God. And what is the most beautiful state of a human being? When we are not lost in the mind. We are directed. That is the most important thing to be at all achieved in the human life. Every day, every time, we need to be directed. This is where we fail. And when we are misdirected, we are not settled, we are confused, we are in doubts, we are in a stress and tension. A slightest of provocation gives us a lot of irritation, lot of anger, because one pointed attention has not been achieved. Now, there, we come to a great inspiration that the Indians had. Our day used to begin from 4 o'clock in the early morning with Amrit Vela. It did not begin in the modern times like we are living by, the Westerners. We get up at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. The first thing to have is tea. And another dreaded thing is to have a newspaper in the hand, where most often these journalists will put the murderous picture right in front of you on the front page. A killing there, a collapse of the bridge here, so many people dead. The more dreadful news item is actually shown first to grab more of attention. You can hardly imagine how we spend the entire day. It is very tiring, very confusing. We are lost. Whereas in the Amrit Vela, this is what the people used to do, which Professor Eknath Ishwaran did it in his university. People used to in India begin with passage, reading of the scripture, meditating on it for a long time, and not just parroting it, repeating the same thing again and again like a parrot. Slowly inside your mind, it gave them one pointed attention. And slowly the students themselves realized that they started paying attention to the people around them. They started paying. Thank you for the appreciation. There is appreciation flowing in on the chat box now. Thank you very much. I'm really feeling, stronger to deliver this lecture. Thank you. So yes, so you slowly start putting others first, because the importance of other person becomes perceptually clear to you. You are not in fact, our sages used to say, the most disturbed person on earth is the one who thinks himself to be important. That is actually a joke. Our sages used to laugh at the people who lived with this abnormal sense of importance of themselves. There could be nothing more disturbing than that, the sages said. These people become, obviously, when you think of yourself to be most important, you become self-centric, then being selfish does not matter. It does not matter. People justify being selfish. People justify being self-centered. People justify giving pain to others because they think they are more important. There can not be more, a thing more erroneous than that. Whereas the cultivated figures, the settled minds, having their mind like a glass, knew that it is the other person who is very important in life. By seeing their difficulties, seeing their pain, seeing their challenges, people wanted to serve each other. When you have this sensation of serving and reaching out to others, know that we are expanding our mind to a greater extent. When you serve a life, you use more of your mind and brain energy. I hope this is a very, very common experience all of us have. There is so much of a joy in serving others. Like we are teachers. We serve our students. We try to counsel them. We bring them out of the doubt. We try to convince them. It's not just a 1 hour play that we do with them. We have a attachment, a bond with them of the entire life, because we start treating them as important. Teachers, parents do this natural dharma of service. And that is how we are probably lucky we have more of expansion of the mind achieved. And it is then, slowly these values bring in a spiritual fellowship, which is missing out today. This spiritual fellowship is getting, replaced by religious fellowship, which is an empty thing. Nobody can understand how far, one has known the religion or how far one feels religious. Merely chanting and being named does not help. Carrying certain flag does not help. In fact, what is more required for the mind energy is a spiritual fellowship, where in certain appreciation of the values, we gather as a community, we come together as a community. People who are clear with certain realities of life. And that is how, through their fusion, want to realize more, want to expand more in this energy body. And this is no doubt promoted all the more through spiritual reading, which was almost in a very, very good practice in our ancient times. and which we are lacking today. But thankfully, with the return of importance of human values in the NEP 2020, most of we at IIIT have always been, Professor Ojha has been the most enthusiastic person here. I would like to acknowledge that. We are, educational institutions of like our kind, your kind, we are almost always committed to bring this culture back. So more of this spiritual reading will only enhance our potential of the mind. So I stop here. Any questions if you might have, please ask me now. You could write on the chat box. I have so many people being on the chat box there. Thank you so much for your kind appreciation. Any questions, or you could raise your hand, or else I'll move forward. It is almost going to be 4 o'clock. Though we don't have a lot left. Okay, just in case if you have questions at the end, please do ask me then. I will then move further. So this is how human values have already been experimented. Okay, I have somebody raising the hand there. Good. Please ask me if you want, or you could write to me on the chat box.
Yuvarani, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Yuvarani, you can unmute yourself.
Perhaps she's not able to. So Yuvarani, you can write on the chat box.
Okay. Perhaps.
So you can take a small break of 5 minutes. You have been continuously speaking, if you don't mind. We can have a small break and then you can come back. Just take little water and come back.
Ma'am, I think you have a great mind energy. You understood, something that was going on in my mind. I wanted to take a break.
Okay, thank you. You can take the, I'll put a poll here so that participants remain engaged.
Yes.
So I will do that.
I'll quickly be back, ma'am.
Yeah, you please go ahead. Somehow the poll is not allowing me to launch. There's some problem right now.
Is it a right time to ask the participants about their interest in presentation?
That's what I was trying to do, but okay. So participants, we have a session on, I think, 10th evening, we have a session where we expect you to also make presentations. We'll be scheduling at most 4 presentations. And then because these programs are all sponsored by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So taking a quiz is essential. So we will be conducting a quiz from 6:30 to 7:30 that day on 10th. That means day after tomorrow. And before that, for 1 hour, we would like to listen from you. We would like to have 4 presentations, at the most 4 presentations on that day by participants. So those who volunteer to make presentation, please write your names on a topic which is related. Please write your name so that we can listen to you. If you have anything to present. If not, then we will be selecting. It's better that you volunteer. Please write your names here. Bharti madam, you have been talking a lot and discussing with people. So can I ask you to make a small presentation, ma'am? Are you there? रुको एक मिनट बुलाती हूँ मैं. Yeah, Bharti ma'am, are you there? I'm just unmuting yourself. Unmuting you. You please tell me if you will be willing to do that. It seems Rajeshji, participants have also gone for a couple of minutes to relax. So we can ask them to. What about Dr. Manoj Nanda? Please write your names in the chat box. All right, so by today evening, we'll be randomly selecting 4 people, and we'll request you to please make a small presentation about your institution. What are good practices in your institution? If anything that you have done, experimented with curriculum development, with best practices, that would be great. Just for 10-15 minutes. We are not asking anything big from you, and we wish to hear from you. Like what are those? It's basically these programs are to improve our network, to be more connected. So how is that possible? If only we keep on speaking, and that will not be a good idea. So we thought that Tapas K. Aich is asking me, repeat once. So we are inviting your expression of interest to make a small presentation about your institution, where you are teaching, what are the best practices. If you have anything specific to tell about your institution, any innovative things, practices that your institution has experimented with. For example, yesterday, Dr. Manoj Nanda was telling about something, rainwater harvesting. It can be girl education. It can be anything that you want to talk about. Not only about your institution, you can talk about some ideas that are there in your mind. For 10-15 minutes, we are inviting presentations from you. So 10-15 minutes, take some 4 slides, make presentation, and so that we will definitely issuing you a different certificate along with the general certificate. And 6:30 to 7:30 on that day, there will be one examination on 10th, day after tomorrow. One small quiz with 15 questions, that's all. Still nobody has come forward. It's something which is, now there are 2 chat messages. So Bharti ma'am, okay, Bharti ma'am is ready to give the presentation. That's so nice of you. Thank you, ma'am. What about Tapas ji? Tapas ji, are you also ready? What about you, Madam Selva Lakshmi? Can you, I'm unmuting you. Would you like to take up, would you like to make a small presentation? Dr. A. Selva Lakshmi?
Yes, ma'am.
You would be? Thank you so
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much. So we would like to hear from you on
Yes.
10th, the day after tomorrow. It's only some 10-15 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And what about Dr. Mohan, Mr. V. Mohan Raj? You are from where, and would you be interested in doing that? I have requested you to unmute yourself. Dr. Mohan Raj. Are you there, Mohan Rajji? So 2 people have volunteered. That's great. Yes, Dr. Tapas, you will have to make a small presentation. Preparing a presentation for teachers is not that difficult. So I'm sure that you will be able to make a small presentation, 5-6 slides. That's all. Just tell about what is there in your institution? Is there any unique feature? Okay, Tapas ji, I hope you are ready. And I am also asking Dr. Mani Gandhan, Dr. E. Mani Gandhan. Dr. E. Mani Gandhan, are you ready? Dr. Mani Gandhan, are you there or not? I have unmuted you. You can unmute yourself and speak. So Mamta, I just was acting like a filler.
Yes,
Now you can continue. So we have identified 3 participants who will be making presentation on 10th of this 10th February. Yeah, so Dr. Tapas, Dr. Bharti, and Dr. Selva Lakshmi. Great. Okay, you please continue.
Yeah. So thank you for giving me a short break. It was very much required. And I'm very happy to be back with a question. There's a question lying on my chat box. That's a very interesting one. And it says, ma'am, you're teaching us others is first, but practically nobody is doing it. It's only in words, nobody follows it. So what is going wrong? Like, this is something people are not following. Yes, I absolutely agree with you, the learned teacher there, that unfortunately, this is not in the practice we very usually see, because in the 21st century, the 20th century, people have become a lot more commercialized than we used to be. People are living for short gains. Some of us are only living for the gains, which we don't know even clearly what they are. So I would just, give you an example. India, very tragically, yesterday, I think not yesterday, on the 6th of February, lost our very, very dear singer, Madam Lata Mangeshkar. And she's a Bharat Ratna, and who doesn't know? We don't even need to introduce her. A great melodious voice. And yesterday, on 6th, I grew so upset because in some way I'm associated with the classical music too. And my classical education in classical music has given me a temperament to appreciate Lata perhaps better than what others might, feel about her. I started reading her biography in her memory. On 6th, I spent the entire afternoon till evening reading her biography. was so much elated in reading it, something that we can't even imagine today. Almost everywhere in our biography, it was written, music directors used to direct each other's songs. Can you imagine that? They used to direct each other's song. Naushad ji used to direct the music for Roshan. Roshan used to direct it for Naushad. And she writes so easily in her biography, which was written by Nasreen Munni Kabir, a very eminent, biographer of the film industry, to whom the interview of Lataji was given. So she writes that, Lataji writes that this was the culture. It was the culture at that time. And people did not even look for. Now, you and I, after looking at that movie and the names of the people that appear on that movie, we will not even know that the music director labeled here is Roshan ji. But who directed that particular song was Naushad. They did not wait for money. They did not wait for acclamation, acknowledgement of names. But the super melodies came up in the golden era of the film industry at that time, because people were very forthcoming. Noor Jahan used to often and on greet Lataji. She used to call her for dinners. Both of them ate together. Both of them were competitors. She called her Appa, elder sister. She was a beti to them. We had this kind of a culture where people knew that it was a competition. Lata was taking Noor Jahan's songs, but Noor Jahan did not feel bad about it. Naushad ji, Roshan ji, both of them were each other's competitors in the golden era. But no, they did not cut each other's throats, because they lived with that kind of an awareness. They had the people who themselves embraced poverty. They lived a very simple life. Their needs were very few. And that is the reason why value of Roshan was great. Value of Naushad was great, because the other things were not that valuable. Lata was very important to Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan was very important to Lata. Her appreciation meant a lot. So, unfortunately, we are losing that culture, but this NEP will set us on the track back, and we'll come back. So I tried, in short, to give you a relevant example, and I was myself quite amazed that the people who owned such big business because of being music directors came up ahead, forward, to respect each other and to value each other's talent. So moving on further, meditation on human values. Now I'm going to talk about a scientific experiment which was carried on by Dr. Siegel on his bipolar disorder patients and depressive patients. Now, this is a question that has been asked to me in the chat box at the right time. We are not placing people first because we don't have that kind of an awareness. We are lost in our momentary gains. And for that momentary gain, we are willing to spare the people from our own life. We're plucking people out. Ye nahi chahiye, ye nahi chahiye. Why the damn I should worry about this relationship? Let it go to hell. Friendships are not becoming existing in our working culture too, unfortunately, which we see in the older movies. Now, Daniel Siegel, being aware of it, conducted an experiment. He introduced these two poems, which is called poetry therapy. Now, there is a poetry therapy going on as a counseling session in America for bipolar and depressive patients. And one is a poem that is very well known to the Christians of the Saint Francis of Assisi. Make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. I'm not bringing in the entire poem because it's a slide. All of us know this poem. Probably we might have been singing it at the school. The another is a Hindu prayer that they took, which is from India. May all living beings be happy. May all living beings be healthy. May all be safe and thrive. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukh bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. He made them recite again and again, again and again, again and again. And lo, a huge discovery was made. These patients, as we move on to the next slide, these patients, by going deep into it, now there you see a colorful brain. Our brain is not that colorful. It's a very ugly looking organ full of skin, because scientists say brain is nothing but an elongated skin, because cells used to think by their membrane. Nucleus does not make the cell think. It is the skin of the cell, the membrane, that used to take the decision, which has evolved to become the brain. And that is why the brain looks like skin. So you have various centers in the brain there. Frontal lobe is this part of our brain. Now to the culture that is placing itself first, me first. It's my life, right? We have songs even like that being made, right? So in that good picture, you see that this prefrontal cortex is called the chief executive officer of the entire brain. Now, perhaps my learned teachers here professors here would be helped by one important note that I'm sharing with you. We often and on hear many people talking today in materialistic terms. They say, I am a materialist. I believe in materialism. I'm not a spiritualist. Now, spiritualist is considered to be something very bookish. But that's not the technology of God. The way brain is made, the frontal lobe, where you have the prefrontal cortex behind our forehead, where we put in the tilak, is actually the spiritual part of the brain that is the highest brain. And it functions very well when we are in love. Love is called to be the fire of the CEO of the brain, the chief executive officer. Poetry is love. Why is the poetry therapy working with the patients? Because poetry is love, as you saw in these lines that came up ahead of this slide. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. May all be happy. Sarve santu niramaya. May everybody be healthy. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. May everybody be wealthy. Dukh kisi ko na mile. May nobody be unhappy. Om Shanti, gifting Shanti to others. We come out through love. When we start coming out in love, this prefrontal cortex, the spiritual part of the brain, which is the highest part of the brain, it is 30% of the entire brain. In animals, chimpanzee that are the closest, it is 13%. In dogs, it is 7%. In cats, it is 3.5%. In human beings, it is 30% of our brain. But that is a spiritual part of the brain. It is not logical brain. And that gets awakened with philosophy. So by the age of 21, this stops growing. So it is important for us teachers to realize that these people must be trained in these human values, must be exposed to these human values right from the age of 17. Before that, we can implant in them human values. But the brain is not cultivated enough to appreciate what is character. You can't give a character education to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old people. They've still not had those flush of hormones. So they can't even imagine what are the challenges of a human life. But somebody at this age of 17 is flushing with marinating in hormones. They know what is going on, in their brain and how it is disturbing. So they are able to appreciate these human values a lot. And, and that is how they're able to function more from their prefrontal cortex. As soon as they are introduced to the philosophical sessions of human values, they get acquainted with them. Their PFC functions. And that is what the doctor saw In his bipolar disorder patients and depressive patients, there is something very important. If the people should be looking at me in the video, you could please look at me. In depression and bipolar, doctors have realized one thing in the brain scan. All of the neuronal circuit are in the midline brain with these patients. And doctors today tell the people, the more you say I, the more you remain first, competitive, the more you're only bothered and self-centered and selfish about yourself. It is only this middle part of the brain that is sparks. And when you get located here, that is the beginning of depression. That is the beginning of bipolar disorder. That is a kind of madness. In fact, motor materialism leads people to madness. Unfortunately, that is what doctors are today witnessing. Unlike the Bollywood movies, it's not about, becoming sad because of a betrayal. Those could be very emotionally disempowering moments, but it is more of the sense of I, super inflated I. Putting the rest of the people in your life undercover, not taking care of them. That is what lends up into DMN, default mode network, which is there in the depressive patients. But these poetry, these poems, this poetry made them channelize their brain vibrations down to the periphery. The entire brain got connected with these poetry. And what was implanted? The title of this slide is Meditation on the Meanings and Values. It actually, the human soul cherishes when you wish others well. May everybody be happy. It gives you some kind of a happiness. It makes you imagine there is somebody in your life whom you want to see as happy. And it brings in a smile. You realize this is me. I have these emotions for them. I don't want them to suffer. Why am I so cruelly competitive with this person? No. Intention. Poetry implants the intention that gives them an attention of life. The neuronal circuit do not remain concentrated in the middle part of the brain. It expands. Awareness is energy. New awareness. As more of brain is functioning, new awareness comes in. There is more of energy that is enjoyed. More of ideas click. How to make others happy. What to do that will be more suitable about them. When you have more of energy, you will like to others to survive. There will be a happiness in your life. This is the state of connect to me, when the entire brain functions. Education must ensure that. And it will happen when the Chief Executive Officer of the brain. Just imagine the technology of God. We make mobiles, God made brain. And the way he has made it, there is only one way to live. If you're given in love, you have the best of the life to be afforded. PFC functions in love hormone oxytocin. The spirituality is awakened. When PFC is functioning, the head is awakened, the entire brain will get orders from it. The entire brain will get activated. It is the center head. This is called connectome. And there we again find how these human values, they inspire to rewire. Continuous inspiration will happen. As Dr. Daniel could find out in his laboratory. Now we come to the slide on words and mind. Words. In Indian philosophy, it is called akshar. Jiska koi nash nahi hai. Something that cannot be destroyed. Once it is uttered, it will lay in the mind energy of some person somewhere. And we can't even pluck it out. Until and unless we form an understanding of it, we can't even pluck it out. Now, people have become too casual about the words, very unfortunately. I have my house over a balcony, overlooking the road, main road of Jabalpur. And over the years, I've been staying in the place for 10 years and have actually witnessed how our level of conversation is falling. Now you sit in the balcony, you actually hear the youngsters passing by on the bike using slangs. And they use more of slangs. Maybe this is a fact that I would like to share with you. They use more of slangs during the festival time, which is very unusual. You hear it more in Diwali, Dashera, perhaps not in other times. More of slangs, very bad words, usually denigrating women. Earlier, that was not the case. I used to hear greetings of gods. People used to wish each other. That was the over the cup of tea. While having my cup of tea, I used to listen to that. But today I'm listening to all the bad words. So I usually have tea in my study rather than in the balcony. So words are very important, and they're associated definingly with the mind, because once a word enters into the mind energy, it spreads the meaning like a spark. And it captures the mind energy. That is what the great people have become accustomed to. They train the people in mind. They are capable of capturing us in the mind energy by their use of words, by their clever use of words, aware use of words. Now, even Daniel Siegel could make out in his laboratory that it made the mind grow slow. The more you are getting associated with the words, the more you repeat it. Like in the Indian tradition, we had this, tradition of Ram Nam Japna. And Gandhi wrote a book on that, on why to chant the name of gods. Today, we might, consider it to be something unscientific, but it's very real. That has come up from a very brilliant scientist of Oxford University, Dr. Jude Currivan. Now, Dr. Jude Currivan has the reputation of being more brilliant than our own Stephen Hawking, who did a marvelous research on, universe and black holes. But when the Oxford University conducted this competition, Jude Currivan defeated Stephen Hawking in knowing about the black holes. So this lady, Jude Currivan, wrote a wonderful book on cosmic hologram. That book is there in my Kindle. And there she discovered in a laboratory that this Indian tradition of Ram Nam Japna or Japna, Hey Ram, we used to listen to those old people. Today, we don't even see it. We are all mobile people today, but people used to sit and they used to, move the rosary and they used to chant the names. It creates a cosmic hologram. That wonderful, people used to sing bhajan, something that you repeat of the word, that has got a great value. It creates a cosmic hologram in the atmosphere. It makes for a surcharged atmosphere. And probably this is what Indian ashrams were. We educational institutions were considered to be an ashram. What is an ashram? It was the womb of the nation. Nation ka garbh. It was the womb of the nation, where we used to develop the cosmic hologram of thoughts for the entire nation to survive in. And that is how the worst of the political figures were against Chanakya. But because of Nalanda University and because of the unity among the teachers in the Nalanda University, no king of India who dreaded Chanakya could destroy Chanakya. Our Gautam Buddha survived in this culture. He used to speak about so many ills in the Indian society. But unlike Christ, did we crucify our Gautam Buddha? No. He had numerous invitations for him to visit from village to village, village to village, village to village. People used to greet him, offer him food, offer him rest. They used to live with him when he visited those villages. Why? Because we've had surcharged cosmic hologram developed through words, developed through kind intentions, when we repeated such pithy sayings again and again. So even if you repeat this meditative passage, Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kashchit dukh bhag bhavet, we become an ashram. And these thought vibrations travel far and wide, reducing the infection of negativity in other minds. Again, it gives you a one-pointed attention. There is no doubt about it that is coming again here, but for a different meaning. Now we become a conduit, all hollow within. We are no more the constructor, egoistic constructor. I cannot lose to this person. That makes you an egoistic constructor. It might give you the negativity of spoiling the show of that competitor of yours. It might give you a negativity to do something nefarious, something bad. This is egoistic constructor. But when you become all hollow inside, you're not clogged within. Consciousness is open like a child. You're all moving with a smile on your face. You're a conduit, hollow within. And the best of the messages from the entire universe fly through you. They travel through you. And that is how these people do great things. So finally, Dr. Daniel Siegel, concluded that there has to be an education of science of care. Why are we not affording this kind of an education for our college-going students or at a school to care for each other? Because when he trained his bipolar disorder patients and depressive patients, they left the neuronal signals filing in the middle brain. It was happening now in the periphery. The entire brain was in connectomy. He dissolved the midline brain. And that is how they got cured, by kind intention. Now there is a science of care. The more you're kind to others, the better is your brain health. The more you learn to put others first, it is to be learned. It is a difficult lesson to be learned. You will have to do away with your ego. You will have to do away with your jealousy. You will have to do away with your negativity. When you put others first, the midline brain gets dissolved. And your brain is more in tune with your awakened mind. That brings us to the final point I had made in the abstract, survival of the fittest. Now, as Charles Darwin meant, it is not the survival of the fittest like that of a lion in a jungle, but with human beings, with our greatest presence of the mind, it is the diversity that promotes unity. The more we are set into our diverse background, thankfully, IIIT got its liberal arts department. The more of diversity people are exposed to, the greater is the brain potential we use. Science people must interact with the arts and social sciences people, commerce people. Each one of us must interact more with each other. We must not be settled and captured and arrested in our in our fields, because that does not promote the cultivation of the mind energy. There is no fusion. Fusion will happen when your mind is curious. And you become curious when you see something different. Until and unless that happens, curiosity is absent. When you're living with the same, there is no use of being curious. You already know you are there in a competition. But with different people around, competition is stress. Stress of competition and tension of competition goes away. It withers because you want to learn. So this attitude of respect for each other's learning should be there. So diversity, as it is in India, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, from the different religions we stay together, that is good for our brain health. The more is mind energy fusing with other energies, forming a unity, it is better for our brain. More of connectivity is achieved. Integration makes us fit. We should not live in isolation, which cannot be equated to that of a rishi. Rishis used to sit all alone in a gufa, in a cave, and used to meditate for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But their mind energy was with everybody. They were not living for themselves. But even in the ordinary circumstance, if we remain isolated, we are unable to mix in with the people. We lose our mental, bodily fitness. And that is where we need to realize that it is formally going to be only the survival of the foremost. The more we take in the responsibility, the more is the joy and cheer in life. The more there is a confidence in life that I can do, I can gift happiness. And that makes me feel all the more brilliant. So that was what Meher Baba, our medieval century saint of India, said. This is from the World Wisdom Literature on how spiritual reading promotes it. I told you, Upanishadic Rishi said, literature is a cow. The milk of it is wisdom. Unfortunately, there are, different opinions about literature coming in, which are not very educated, much ignorant. It may not be simply an entertainment or other things. It is a lot more. And even as an entertainment, it replenishes the hormones in the brain, right? But more than that, this is the spirituality we learn through it. Mind that is fast is sick. Our saints already knew it. When we remain in a disturbed mind, that is a sickness. Mind that is a slow is sound. Fine. When you're not disturbed, nobody around will be you disturbed. But mind that is still is divine. This is Om Namah Shivaya that we chant. That is very popular in Hindus. Om Namaha. That means no mind. Our energy should be settled so nicely that it gives us the appearance of the glass I am wearing. If this glass keeps on shaking, I do not have a clear perception. I can't even feel what I'm seeing. But when mind is absolutely quiet, Om Namah Shivaya, we actually become the God. We are capable of being Swataha Siddha. We are capable of being Aham Brahmasmi. We become one with Shiv. So that is the chant Om Namah Shivaya. Man hi na reh jaye, Shiv ke hi darshan ho. That is what it meant. So coming to the conclusion, harmony is living rich. And the more we live in harmony, the greater are our thoughts, same as waste, as I've already explained to you. And when we keep on demarcating the differences and remain stuck to it, we kill ourselves. The wisdom, the technology of God in creating life is that, and especially that of the human being, is that we are born to be unique. There is the sense of competition there. We are all capable of affording different mind. And the more your mind is different, the more your brain is different. We are not the same. So competition gets cancelled. Everybody must get their place in this world. And that is how we'll be a happier world through human values. So these are some of the references I've used. And there I end my presentation here with a thank you. So thanks to everybody here for listening to me so patiently. And now I would be very much open to the questions if the audience have for me. I hope it was very palatable.
Thank you, Professor, for your wonderful lecture. And you have been end the presentation with the word unique, which is quoted as Swadharma in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Right. So
very well.
It's excellent. And my initial take over this presentation is like, how can a trained mind will react to the situation or respond to the situation?
How does it think?
Trained mind, either it will react to the situation or respond to the situation. This is a popular theme which Maharaj Gaur Gopal Das often used to say. Maybe the interpretation will be sadhana, but still how one can train the mind either to react to the situation or respond to the situation.
Yes, it is definitely the trained mind responses to the situation. You're very right in marking that. Oh, thank you so much. Very kind appreciation is now flowing on in the chat box. I am in fact indebted to the wonderful occasion because we belong to the field of reals. We, the literature people, the people of music.